Hey guys, welcome back to another video from Let's DevOps. I know it's been quite some time since we published the last video. Sorry for that, I was caught up with some personal stuff, but we are back on track. So be rest assured, our videos will again start flowing as before in the coming days. Right, so what's the topic for today? Today we are going to see about Rancher. What's Rancher? If this is something that you're hearing for the first time, Rancher is a Kubernetes management platform. Uh, if you want to understand and know what Rancher is, Rancher provides you a pretty detailed, sophisticated documentation under rancher.com. So get into this site and then uh, do your reading part. It's very interesting. But for people who are getting started and hearing it for the first time, I'll just give you a high-level overview of what Rancher is, and then we'll get started with today's video. So Rancher, as I said, is a Kubernetes management platform, and the official site actually reads this. Rancher is a complete software stack for teams adopting containers. It addresses the operational and security challenges of managing multiple Kubernetes clusters while providing DevOps teams with integrated tools for running containerized workloads. Now, in short, or to make it simplified, if you are someone who's getting started with Kubernetes and it would be pretty overwhelming for you to do it completely via the command line, be it Kubernetes management, administration, or you want to deploy applications onto Kubernetes environment, completely relying on the command line for all of this stuff could be overwhelming to you. So to get you kickstarted and to get you understand Kubernetes, you use Rancher. Rancher is basically a platform that helps you manage the Kubernetes clusters, and not just the clusters, but also what's happening inside each of the clusters. So you have a UI, you register your local cluster with Rancher, and once you register it with Rancher, then you can use the UI to pretty much check out what's happening, what are the deployments, what are all the services, secrets, pods, troubleshoot the pods, look what's happening. You can open a console, integrated console of a pod or a container. You can roll back deployments. There's much more that you can do using Rancher. And since it's the UI based platform, it is very easy for people getting kickstarted to understand what's happening inside the Kubernetes cluster. So in today's video, we are going to see how we can deploy and set up our local Rancher, and also followed by uh, um, registering our local Minikube cluster to Rancher and see if Rancher is able to monitor this Minikube cluster and show us on this sophisticated UI of Rancher. If this sounds interesting, let's get started. Uh, as you all know, I have a local environment which is Ubuntu based, and I have a simple script that I have created to run the Docker container of Rancher. So first, before executing the container, I will very quickly show what the script is all about. So I just do a cat demo sh. Yep. So it's pretty straightforward. If you have been following my videos, this is the default template that we use for any new application software tool that we want to deploy, the containerized version of it. So Rancher provides you a official Docker image called as Rancher/Rancher latest. So you don't have to worry about the um, software upgrades and stuff. The latest tag takes care of it. So you do docker run -d, you give it a name, you call it Rancher, and then we give an argument restart unless stopped. So the moment the container gets stopped for some reason, it then again tries to get itself restarted. The default ports are 8080, and then we want to publish it into ports 443. That's basically to try and have it secured and open it under the HTTPS URL. That's why we do this. And then we want to execute it as a privileged user, and then the image. And then a simple check, like if the previous command gets executed clean, then we echo Rancher container started, else we echo failed to start the Rancher container. Now, if you have been following our videos, you would notice that for this Docker run, we haven't mounted the volume, or we haven't attached any volume. Uh, it makes sense, or it is always preferred to attach volumes because you don't want the data to get lost. If you run the container this way, whatever we do at the end of the session, and then I stop the container and go off, all of the data, all of the configuration is gone. So it makes sense for us to attach a volume, uh, like I have it on my other script. I show here. So -v rancher data is mounted against the var lib rancher, which is inside the container. So all of the data of rancher, the configurations, is then stored into this volume, and so none of the data is lost. Since I've, before the demo, played around with rancher, did the whole setup and stuff, I have all of my data stored in here, and so I don't want this demo to refer to this. Then all of the configurations are already there, and there's nothing we can show for the demo, so I want to do it fresh, and that's why I'm going to run this script without the volume. And then once we finish, and in the further videos, we will be executing the other script that I have. Right, not to confuse, this is the idea behind. So let me clear. Let's go ahead and run our Docker container of Rancher. So the demo version, Docker PS, we should see a container running up 4 seconds. Looks pretty good. So let's go to the browser, and how do you open it? Let's go to the browser. HTTPS, remember this, /localhost colon 443, enter. There you go. Advanced. Even though it is HTTPS, it's still not really secure because there's no certificate as such sitting behind this URL. So that's why you see this not secure. Proceed to localhost unsafe. There you go. It pretty easy, pretty straightforward stuff, and it lands us to the Rancher login page. Just let's follow the steps that's given in here, and then it should help us retrieve the password. For Docker installations, find your container ID with Docker PS. Yes, we already have. Docker logs, just so we basically copy this command to retrieve the password. So paste, and in the place of Docker ID, we replace the container ID, copy, paste, enter. And here you go. This is the initial bootstrap password. Control C, back, paste, boom, there you go. You can use a randomly generated password, or you can also set a specific password. For now, we'll just use the randomly generated password. So I copy this, and maybe I will just put it here for my reference so that I don't miss it out. Clear, so that it stays there on my history. All right, back. And this is a very important part. Let's keep a note of this, but we are not going to do anything now. We are going to continue with the demo part. Later, there's going to be a problem for which we need to fix it in here, but just note. So server URL, right now we are hosting it on the HTTPS localhost, and that's what the server URL is by default. But you can change it to a fully qualified domain name, or you can use the IP address of the machine followed by 443 port. But let's leave it to the default server URL as to how we are opening it right now. And well, let's continue. But we are going to encounter an issue, which we'll see later. Boom. Perfect. We are in. Welcome to Rancher. All good. And by default, on the landing page, you see that it points to your local. So local basically is the local Ubuntu machine that it kind of points to. It's not a Kubernetes cluster yet. But the idea of Rancher is to basically monitor your Kubernetes cluster or clusters, multiple clusters if you have. Now, on my local machine, I have a Minikube cluster. Let me quickly check if it's on the running status. Minikube status. How does it look? It is running. So I have a Minikube uh, cluster. Not a huge cluster. It's just one worker, one node kind setup that I have. So I have a Minikube environment. And this Minikube has few namespaces. I think there are some deployments that I did for my previous demos. We can quickly check. So I do a kubectl get namespace. There you see there are already some stuff in there. Just don't worry about all this terminating and what's already in there, but just to give you a sense of what's already in there, there are quite a few namespaces that are existing in the Minikube cluster. Right now here If I go back, it's just pointing local. So if I go to local, does it show any of these namespaces? If I go to the local, and if I click on projects namespace, no, nothing. It's just the default project it assumes, and this local is also not in any other project. So none of the namespaces that we actually saw in there is existing. I think there is also some deployment that I did. So kubectl get maybe pods -n. I think there should be a pod for Node.js web app. There you see. So there is also a deployment happening, not happening, has happened. There is also a couple of pods running, but none of that is actually visible in here, right? If I go to workloads, it says nothing, 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 daemon set nothing, deployments nothing, job nothing. So basically, this local is not actually the cluster that, but just the local machine, which it assumes to be a cluster. So what we want to do right now is to get this Minikube cluster environment that we locally have registered to Rancher, and then see if Rancher is able to detect, monitor, and find all that's happening on inside our Minikube cluster. So how do you do that? On the left pane, there you see there's something called as cluster management. So let's get in there. So it lands us to this page, and here we don't want to create a cluster. We want to import an existing cluster. So we already have a Minikube cluster on our local, and we want to import that to Rancher. The other option is to create a cluster in itself via Rancher, but that's not what we want. So let's go to import existing, and it out of the box comes with some pretty famous clusters like the Amazon EKS, Azure EKS, and the GCP one. But ours is Minikube, so we go for the generic. I will type in Minikube, my Minikube cluster. Let's leave all of the other stuffs as defaults and go ahead and create the cluster, as in create the configurations to import the Minikube cluster. So if you have worked with something called as Prometheus, uh, Prometheus uses this concept wherein if you want to get the metrics of a machine, then you drop in a node exporter, a service that constantly scraps all the data and then pushes it to an endpoint where you can see all of the metrics. In a way, this concept is kind of similar to this. So if you want to monitor all of that is happening on my Minikube cluster, the Rancher needs to drop in a container, a service that will look for all of that that's happening and then publish it to Rancher. To get that container up and running, you need to set up this registration. Uh, if you read through it, this command is what we are looking for, because we don't have a self-signed certificate sitting behind this URL. We are just doing it on localhost, unsecured way. And if we are doing it the insecure way, then we have to execute this command. Uh, let's copy it. All right, before executing this command, I would like to quickly uh, delete my Minikube instance as in the cluster, and then recreate a new cluster because I just want to make it clean. And then we go about registering our Minikube new cluster to this Rancher. So now that it has restarted as a clean cluster, let's again quickly check kubectl get namespace. There's nothing, the default, and then the cube stuff. So all good. Now let me go ahead and execute the command we just copied. Boom, there we go. All good. Couple of warnings. It's okay, totally fine. Now if I go here and if I hit on clusters, right, what is happening? It's not changed to active mode yet. It still says pending. And if you get into this, you won't see things yet until this changes from pending to active. Now, this is where I would get back to the point that I mentioned before, that we might have a problem that we would encounter with this local host. Even if you wait for an hour or so, this will still keep staying in the pending state, because if I go and see what this registration has done, it has actually spinned up something called as cattle system. Now, to see why this is still in pending state and has not switched to active state yet, we might have to check the do a describe, we'll get into this namespace and see what pod is running. So let's do a kubectl get pods of the namespace cattle system. There you go. That's the problem. So there is one container that must get started, but has not gotten started and is still waiting at container creating status, and it will, I think, eventually turn unhealthy, or I don't know, maybe it might break also. But to find what's the real deal, why does it happen like this? How do we troubleshoot this? There are two ways, not two ways, two things that you need to do as a troubleshooter in this case. One is to do a describe of this pod, and if that doesn't help you, you have to get the pod logs. So first, let's do a describe and see what's happening. Again, kubectl describe pods, this pod hyphen n cattle system. There you see, this scribe will give you the complete description of what's happening with this pod, so you can go through it. But the real deal would be sitting right below, where it says warning, back off restarting failed container cluster registered in pod um, cattle cluster. So it's basically um, back off. It's not able to restart. But this back off is more of a generic information that we get. We are still not sure what really is happening. Why did it not start the container? Why did it back off? Uh, Maybe then, to help us more, we go and check the pod logs. So let's do logs container, again hyphen cattle system, enter. Yep. So this is the pod log, and the moment I hit below, I see error HTTPS localhost ping is not accessible. So somehow it is not able to hit or communicate with this local host. Now, after doing some research, I found that this local host that we gave as the server URL would not work. And to fix this issue, you might have to use it, give the server URL as the machine IP colon the port, which is 443. Now, how do I get the machine IP? Now, to do that, there is a command show IP addr addr. This is Ubuntu machine, so this command would work. If you're using a different flavor of Linux, you might have to check what command would be equivalent to this. So if I do an enter, oops, oh, the other way. I'm sorry. I thought it's show IP addr. It's IP addr show. My bad. Right. If I come do that, if it is going to give you a list of different um, uh, uh, IP addresses, but we are looking for the one with the ETH-O and the INET address. So this 172, this one is what we are looking for. Now, if I copy this colon 443, I've actually replaced localhost with the IP address, and if I hit enter, it will still go ahead and open Rancher the same way it did with the localhost. Now that is what we need to update in the configurations. So I go back, I go to global settings on the left side, and if I scroll down, there is this server URL. So I modified that. Oops, I modified that. 443, save, and cube crash loop back off. So it basically ends with crash loop back off. Uh, Simple. Let's do this registration once again. I will delete the namespace kubectl, delete namespace cattle system. Let's do it fresh. Go back, cluster, Minikube, registration. I copy this once again. Let's wait for this to get deleted. Boom, all good. Clear. Once again, kubectl get namespace. Nothing in there. Let's rerun the command. Again, couple of warnings, totally fine. Do we have the cattle system? Good. And along with that, it is also spinning up few more namespaces, which already means things are looking good. But to ensure things are really looking good, I check the pod that's running inside the cattle system namespace kubectl get pods hyphen n cattle system. Yeah. Perfect. There is this running. And if I go here to the cluster, hopefully in some time, There you go. The one which was sitting as pending has now switched to active, and that's exactly what we need. Let me jump inside Minikube and let's go to, yeah, maybe let's go to the clusters, Minikube. This is the node. Let's go to AI. Perfect. Let's go to projects and namespace. Nothing. So what we can do is to ensure if it can now monitor everything that's happening on the Minikube cluster, I would try and create a new namespace here on the local and then quickly jump to Rancher to see if it's getting reflected there. Thereby, I can confirm that Rancher is now monitoring my Minikube cluster, and everything that's happening there will then be recorded on the UI. And we can also try it the other way around. So once again, kubectl get namespace. We have all of the namespaces that is needed for this Rancher registration with Minikube. These are basically like your Prometheus node exporter services that is sitting on the cluster and monitoring this cluster. Now let's create a kubectl create namespace. Let's DevOps. All right, let's DevOps demo namespace. Enter. Boom. Do we have it? Let's DevOps demo namespace created. Come here. I do a refresh. There you go. Let's DevOps demo namespace. If I get into it, there will be nothing. If you get to the workloads, because there's no application deployed, there's no pod that's running, there's no deployment secret services, nothing. But if we do that, it is going to show you on this sophisticated UI. Uh, Looks really cool, right? And this was fascinating to me as well. Now, before ending this video, let's do one final test of doing it the other way around. Let's uh, create a namespace on the UI and see if it's reflecting on the local. So, Minikube, projects and namespaces. I will create a, no, I want to create a namespace. I'll create a namespace. And let's name this uh, Uno reverse. Let's leave the quota as to the default limits and go ahead and let's create. Boom. Let's come back, get namespace. Uno reverse created 5 seconds ago. So there you go. That's just to get you all kick-started with Rancher, but we'll make more videos on Rancher. The next video that is going to follow will basically be, let's do an actual deployment into a namespace in our Minikube cluster with a couple of services, deployments, pods, and then come back to Rancher and then explore the various features of Rancher. So right now, since there are no workloads, we will not be in a position to explore all of its features. But once you have workloads, then there are a lot more options, features that is available that we can explore and play around with Rancher. If this video was interesting to you, I would definitely request you to go ahead and like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and please feel free to drop in your comments in the comment section. And also, if there's any feedback, please do let me know. Uh, right now, at the point of this video, I'm one member short of hitting the 200 subscribers mark. But thank you so much, family, for the support. See you all in another video. Take care. Bye bye.